architects portrayed in movie as terribly complicated people who are very, very stubborn, but that has to stop. I realized that I was an architect, not a landscape architect. I had a stronger opinion. I quit on the basis of a very, very small project. I could probably survive 1.5 months for the money that we got out of it. When I think back of it, it was very, very brave. Persuaded a local carpenter to make a cube full of little doors and openings and a secret room inside, like a kind of very childish piece of furniture. I call it the shrine. If you have a good idea, you share it, it's fine. You can only learn from sharing.
Hey, I'm your host, Abdullahi, and today I'm sitting with Sigurd Larsen. He's an architect and studio founder who trained with the giants, quit with nothing, and forged his own path into the industry of architecture. But before we get into it, I had this little favor I wanted to ask you. If you want to help us grow, if you want to support this new journey we're getting into together, all I can ask from you is to hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends. And in exchange, what I can promise is I'll do my very best to bring the guest that fits our purpose and that actually have the answers we're looking for. So yeah, thank you for your support, and let's get into it. Sigurd, I wanted to start from the beginning of your career. You've trained with the biggest, if I can call them that way, OMA, MVRDV, COBE. And I was wondering, when you're in those places that are driven by massive scale and speed, and today you have this work that is completely different, that is mostly described as calm, as a touch more slow than what you would have on those firms. Can you remember the first moment when you felt misaligned with those kind of big architecture?
Well, actually, the offices that you mentioned were places that I worked during my studies.
Yeah.
First as an intern, and then by COBE I was employed during the last part of my studies, basically.
Okay.
So, I think I went into it with a very open mind and a lot of curiosity. It was also my first work experience. MVRDV was the first place I was, and it was my first work experience. So I think at that point I was still studying, and I think I just went into it and absorbed everything and tried to learn, tried to keep up. The first internship I did already on my 5th semester. I got an extra sort of permission from my teacher to do it a year earlier than we were supposed to. But somehow I was eager to travel and come out and so on, and I managed to convince her, and somehow that worked out. So I was actually also quite young. And I don't know, for me, it was just, I thought everything was exciting and everything was new. And I think from an early point during my studies, I became very interested in working on things that were real, which is both good and bad. I think I got a bit impatient during my studies of all these theoretical projects. I wanted to build things. I wanted to see it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the reason why I did so much work and internship and so on during my study time. So, and despite the fact that I knew since I was a kid that I wanted to be an architect, I found out a bit later what kind of architect I wanted to be, I think. Because I think after you ended your studies, during the studies we tried to design furniture, we designed small houses, we designed urban plans, and we tried a little bit of everything, and it's a part of the studies. And then after in your first work experience that you get after the end of the university, that's when you kind of, I think, work your way a little bit into certain topics that can be a bit random.
To figure out your way.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be random, and it can be something you really control. And in my case, I worked since the end of my studies both with urban planning and with landscape design in an office here in Berlin, which was the reason why I ended up in Berlin. And then it wasn't until I actually quit my job and started my own business that I went a little bit back to my old interest of furniture design and things in a smaller scale that had more craftsmanship and more maybe also a little bit more creative freedom in it. So that came after. So I think I spent a lot of time towards the end of my studies and the first years after, browsing a bit around and trying a bit of everything and collecting some experience.
Okay.
So in that sense, if you say I studied for 6 years and then there was some years afterwards of working a bit and then starting a company, that spans over 10 years. That's a long process.
So the beginning was more like you went to these big firms, if I can say it like that, just seeking for experience and trying to figure out your way. There was no purpose behind it. It was just like you wanted to work.
No, I was already, as a student, I was already interested in those offices. I thought they were amazing. I tried to read everything about them and what they published themselves, and I tried to look into their projects. And we were on a study trip to Holland before, where we visited a lot of OMA and MVRDV buildings. And I think that probably is where I sort of discovered all the exciting things that was going on in Holland at that time. So I don't know. I think it was just something I was a lot into in my study period, and it was also an exciting time in Holland. There was all these new offices that were doing things that worldwide became published, and they were onto something.
Okay, quite interesting. But I was just wondering. If you come back to, you got graduated, if I'm not wrong, 2008.
Yeah.
And you moved to Berlin.
Yeah.
You started working at Topotech 1.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, first of all, we know that 2008 is like the year of the economic crash. Like,
it's a terrible time to graduate.
Yeah, that's one of the worst moments I can tell, like, to finish your studies. And then, but you managed to start working at Topotech 1 in Berlin, which is completely different.
Yeah.
New place, new country.
Yeah.
Everything is new for you in that scale. But then 2 years later, you quit.
Yeah.
Why?
Because Topotech 1 was working with landscape design. And I learned a lot from it, and we were doing a lot of competitions. I was a project manager there, so there was a lot of other type of skills that I learned there. But I definitely realized in that period that I was an architect, not a landscape architect. There's lots of people who study one thing and become something else. There's lots of architects who end up becoming interior architects, and there's some jumping around. Yeah, and it usually works quite well. Actually, it's such a general education that we have, and then we can implement it in different scales. And I think that's usually something good. But I just quite specifically in that period, I was doing competitions with offices in Denmark. Okay. But then I represented the landscape architects from Berlin. Okay. And I realized in that process that I had a lot more opinion about what they were doing than what I was supposed to be doing. And that's probably a sign that I'm sitting on the wrong side of the table, and I should go back to a little bit more sort of the core of architecture where my interest was. Was it frustration? No, it's very personal. It's just more like when you feel that you have a stronger opinion about something else than what you're actually supposed to do, then you have to ask yourself if you are doing the right thing, if you are in the right position. Yeah. And I could feel that I wanted to go back to building design. So, and that's actually why I quit on the basis of a very, very small project that I could do with a friend back then. I think I could probably survive 1.5 months for the money that we got out of that. So I don't know. It was, when I think back of it, it was very, very brave. So you quit 2 years after working there. Yeah. You're in Berlin, still in Berlin. Yeah. You decide you're not going back to Denmark. And you saved just for 1.5 months. Like, take me through that path, because I want to understand what made you say, like, this is safe for me to jump in it? And what was that feeling that pushed you to do that? It's the arrogance of youth a little bit, but you can turn that into a drive and get things done. I was still in my 20s, and I thought now is the time, and something needs to change. And if I would do it again today, I don't know. At that time, I anyway lived the same way as I had done as a student on a very low budget, and could figure that out and had a good life anyways. Berlin had a lot to offer, and you didn't need to earn a lot of money to have fun in this city. So I don't know. I just felt like that felt like a kind of a continuation. I hadn't installed myself in life in a very expensive apartment with children and a car and like whatever stuff. So I could do this at this point in my life. I think, except to live on a low budget and try to work something up instead. So that didn't seem like such a hard decision to make. And then, I mean, then you just have to be a little bit brave. I mean, I had that little amount of money. Then I was applying for some startup support from the German government that I could get, which is basically the same as being on welfare, I think. But you're allowed to work at the same time.
Okay.
And that I got, and that gave me another 6 months or something. And then I because in the beginning I was designing furniture, I could quicker come to the point where at least I could sell a few of my furniture to people. And then that would give a little bit of an income. And later on, I think a year later, I started teaching at UDK here in Berlin.
Yeah.
So then I got my insurances and so on covered. And then that was basically, the purpose of that was to win some time to have more time to start something up.
So you start the company directly. Were you doing it already when you were in Topatech One? From what I understand, you started the company in 2010.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much the same time where you quit. And
I did it exactly after. I quit and started.
Okay. Yeah. And was it like the furniture design? I mean, you telling me all of this, the parkour that we're having, all of us, like, we all going through that way, but everyone is always trying to find the safe net where they can at least protect themselves in a way to evolve clearly. But you quit your job, you don't have enough to survive for a year. And in the same way, you started your company.
Yeah, and it's even worse because then you start a company and then nobody calls you because nobody knows you exist. So how do you get your first work? That's actually the biggest hassle. I mean, I think at that point in my life, one of the things that I took with me from the offices that I had worked in, that we just spoke about, in those offices I had been primarily doing competitions because that's, I think, easy to let students and young people do that and work on, and it's idea development, generating 3D drawings, which none of the older architects at that point knew how to do.
Yeah.
And I think I was a little bit disillusioned over the whole world of architect competition. So I was also very, very keen on giving it a go to see if it's possible to build up a smaller business without being dependent on winning a big jackpot of an architect competition. I was really exhausted by that whole sort of way of working, trying to shoot into the darkness of maybe they want this, maybe they want that. I was at that time very much dreaming about the office the way it is today, that we have clients that are direct contact people that we speak with, and then we develop the project with them from the beginning on, instead of pitching and instead of so we are together with the client from day one developing ideas. That was something that I was really, really dreaming about back then. But I also knew, of course, it will take time to get there. Nobody calls you in the beginning because you haven't done anything yet. You have to.
Yeah, of course. But what was your first steps like?
Well, then I started with doing furniture because I could afford to go to the Baumarkt, to the warehouse. What's called the department? Was called what do they call it again? The warehouse. And buy some concrete and cast some concrete tables. Okay. One of them is the one we have standing out here, actually. And then I casted some concrete tables on my balcony at home.
Okay.
And took some pictures of it, and that got published quite well. Then I got then I persuaded a local carpenter in Kreuzberg that I actually didn't really know, but we got introduced through a friend. I managed to persuade him to make an idea that I've had in my head since I was a kid, and that was like a cube full of little doors and openings.
Okay.
And a secret room inside, like a kind of very childish piece of furniture, actually.
Okay.
To hide your private things. If you share your household with other people, you'll have that as your last private resort. And then I call it the Shrine, and I found some interesting locks and keys that was like a design classic from the GDR. And then I together with that carpenter, he built it and I designed it, and then he gave me a very, very, very good price on that. And then for the first ones we sold, he had to get some of the money back because it was a very elaborate piece of furniture. And that one was, then we took some beautiful pictures of it. And then that was the years where, this was before social media, but blogs were the new thing at that time. And there was a lot of these bloggers around in Berlin and in Kreuzberg here.
Yeah.
And some of those actually sort of picked it up as something funny. Then I got it placed in a local shop here in this neighborhood. And then it got really well published, because at that time, bloggers would, like young bloggers from here, they would publish random things,
everything,
stuff they found funny. And then it got picked up by the more established media, and then the educated journalists, so to speak, they also used the bloggers to do all the field work.
Okay, so then they got into the bigger magazines. Being more like luck.
Yeah, exactly. So that was how it was at that time. I think now it's probably something similar with social media, I guess, for people. But that was a very, very nice way for a young person like me at that time, who hadn't built anything yet, to get out there and then at least get noticed. So the order of things from that point, and this stretches over a few years, it was a very slow start. But there was, I sold some furniture around, mostly sort of within the sort of extended network of the city I'm in here. In Berlin, and somehow that slowly, I think, qualified for the first interior jobs. So then the people from the Michelberger Hotel came to me after they've seen some of the furniture that I did, and wanted me to design hotel rooms for them. So then it became suddenly interior design, and a little bit larger and a little bit easier to start slowly making a business out of.
Okay, but a year later, after starting the business, you start also teaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it more like because you wanted to transmit something, you had that feeling of this is the moment for me to transmit something that I've learned through these last years? Or was it more like, this is an opportunity to make something that I can push my office with?
No, I think actually, I think the thought I had behind it back then was that teaching is also a learning process, that it goes on. I mean, generally within any creative field, it's a lifelong learning process. We will never really become experts, because we will always be jumping over new exciting projects, and then that will be something to learn in everything we do. And I think with teaching, it was a wonderful opportunity to learn more about your own design process, because your job as a teacher, so basically I had to go 2 afternoons a week to UDK. We had in advance prepared some assignments. Then every week I would meet the students and they would show me their work, and my job was to try to guide them and help them move on. So it's a very classic sort of design class.
Okay.
And when you do that a lot as a teacher, you become much, much faster at, first of all, understanding other people's work very fast and forming an opinion about it, verbalizing that opinion. And that kind of training is very valuable, actually, because, I mean, I use it all the time now when I speak to you guys here also, that, what do I think? I think you can struggle a bit in the beginning with not having an opinion about what you're looking at, until you get trained to understand the ups and downs and the pros and the cons, and that helps your own personal design process a lot also. Yeah. So everything I learned in looking at so many other people's work became very deciding on how the design process worked for myself later, and how it works in the office here. So I think it was a fantastic and very important learning process. And then also small human things like I know I used to be very uncomfortable talking in front of big crowds. I mean, all throughout my studies, when I had to present a project, I was very uncomfortable with it. Maybe because I was so fucking ambitious that I was stumbling over myself, and it had to be really good. And to curb that a little bit,
and to jump from that to becoming a teacher.
Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly you have to talk in front of a lot of people and all the time. But I mean, if you do something enough, at some point it's just your life. It's just what you do. And now I'm perfectly fine with it. And now I'm still, although I'm currently not teaching, but I'm still giving lectures at universities. Okay. And I have fun with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been scared of it earlier.
Yeah,
now I have fun with it. So.
It's really interesting because me myself sometimes happen to be giving classes, software classes, things like that, and I realized that back in the days when I remember myself as a student, I was hating my teachers or things like that. So being in this situation where I love transmitting the small knowledge that I feel like I have is something that is surprising. I'm kind of surprising myself discovering this part of myself where I'll be transmitting something to someone and you realize how much you're learning way more. And I think that's also one of the things that attract me more into teaching. It was more like the moment that I started teaching something, I realized how much I was learning more from teaching it than from like this whole process that I've been through. Learn that scale.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I don't know. It goes a bit faster, and you have you have all that preparation time that you need to figure out what you want to teach and what the topics to be and so on, and that also sharpens up your own opinion about things and creates a focus of what you think is relevant and interesting. You also be the one coming up with the assignments and picking out the topics and so on. And suddenly then you have to sit and reflect of what is important in our profession for me.
Yeah. To get back to that process, a few years after starting teaching also, starting the company, you become partner with COBE Berlin.
Yeah. That was, in a way, an extension of my study job in Copenhagen when I was studying and living there. For many years, I was working at COBE, and they later on, that was in the earlier days of that company history.
Yeah.
Today, it's a very large company. I think they have 200-something employees. I was actually employee number 5 in that company. I'm very proud of that. And they have been on such a journey since, and it's really fantastic. And now, when you're in Copenhagen, the whole harbor front is their projects. Like that became wild, but a lot of my friends are still working there. So and was also at the time. So they started up something in Berlin, and I sort of somehow got enrolled in that and was very tempted. And I was personally also in for it to work with people in Copenhagen and on working on exciting projects.
Yeah.
But it turned out a little bit more going in a direction again for the second time in my life, ending up with urban planning and landscape design undeliberately. And so I actually had to sort of rewind that and be a little bit more like true to the type of projects that I was interested in myself and follow my own interest a bit stronger. So I actually had to get out of that again in order to kind of relaunch. I never closed the other office, and during the COBE days, I was building some houses in Copenhagen actually in my own name. So that was maybe also a little bit of a funny spagat to do. So
that's what I was about to ask. Like, how was it? I mean, because you were partner here in Berlin, but your own office were still working.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't know. I think that was again a learning process, and I had to also again sort of see, you can sometimes get into something and then you realize this is actually not what I thought it would be. And then you have to figure out how can I change what I'm into, or can I change? Can I manipulate? Can I change the world into something that's much better for me somewhere else?
Do you think it was stability?
Is there?
Do you think it was stability that you were looking for?
No, it was the type of projects I wanted to spend my life working on different kind of projects than what it turned out to be. I wanted to work with building design, and I could also feel I was much more interested in a scale that I even had the opportunity to do with my own company. So I decided to follow that instead, and that I think was the right decision. And then somehow from 2015, when I sort of 5 years after I started the company, it in a way relaunched a bit.
Yeah.
I'd say the first 5 years was a bit slow, and I was doing a lot of other things and the teaching and COBE, and there was a lot of things going on. And then since 2015, it's been a little bit more straight line up to how the office is working today.
Okay. And one thing that I wanted to understand is, like, today you've been through a long journey so far. you've managed to go from small designs, object design, to getting into interior design the way you did, and arriving into building the way, this type of building that you are so known for right now. How do you convince your client? Like, I guess you have this idea of transmitting this very specific way of doing a building, which is not similar to others, the way they're doing it. And also you have this use of the material of aging, the material that you want it to reflect aging and be respected the way it is. How do you convince your client to follow that path and not another?
That's a very interesting question. I think spontaneously, I think everyone has a strong urge to understand what's going on. And obviously, if you pay an architect and later on a construction team to make probably the most expensive thing you do in your life. What's more expensive than your house if you are working with a hotel? The building itself is the most expensive.
Yeah, definitely.
And a company who builds an office building, that is the biggest investment they do. So you need, I think, to respect the fact that everyone wants to understand what's going on. They want to understand the idea, and everyone is very interested in it as well. We are actually always, all the clients that we have here, they are deeply involved in what we do, and they want to know everything, and they want to be a part of it. I think some of them even want to quit their job and come here and work instead. A lot of people like architecture, and that's why they. Yeah. So of course you have to get people on board. You have to take that time to make them understand what you're doing and why. I feel like everything has a reason, even when it's a little bit sort of childish and funny. I don't know now. If we look at some of our early projects, the Michelberger hotels, where you open and close little doors everywhere, it's a very childish hotel room in a way, and it speaks to the childish side of old people's mind. But that kind of project is still at a meeting deadly seriously explained why it is like this and why it's important and what's fun about it and what's relevant about it and why is that a good hotel room and so on. So we're sitting there sometimes speaking about things that could have been built for children, but we still explain it with arguments and reason and practicalities and so on. It's so I don't know. I think that idea of how to persuade people is to really bring them on board. Be very transparent and open about what you do and why you do it. I'm sometimes thinking about, if you look back a generation earlier than me, I guess, when deconstructivism, but like some of the teachers that have taught me and my generation of architects, when they were young, you belonged to a school, a group, then you could call yourself a postmodernist or a deconstructivist. Yeah. That didn't exist when we studied. We didn't call ourselves anything. But if I think about it, it was a very intellectual kind of architecture. Yeah. And if I imagine that I would have been sitting in a meeting, if I look at a deconstructivist building that is very complex, and it's using a lot of materials that I can't argue why they are there. It's just a long stick sticking out.
Good question.
And I'm always thinking about how I would love to have experienced one of those meetings, because they must be very different from the meetings I have with my clients. I don't think I could first talk about a philosopher who wrote a text 10 years earlier, and that was about a fold and a blah blah blah, and because of that text, we should build this, and then you should spend 40,000 euros on that long stick that comes out of the building that has no purpose. I don't have that kind of clients, and I don't think I have that kind of intellect either. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know how to build up that row of arguments. Yeah, I think I come from a generation also where sustainability was the main buzzword. So we learned something completely different. So we were taught by that generation, but we had that sort of whole gravity of sustainability, material use, and so on us, that I feel like that had played a very little role. Then they maybe had the freedom to be more intellectual than we had. We had to solve problems. So that's a huge difference. But I'm often thinking about, like, how did they, or even if you look at a building from the 19th century that has like a granite eagle holding a tower that looks medieval, and then Imagine that meeting.
That's a good question, actually. Sometimes I'm really wondering how they managed to convince this client.
It must have been hilarious to participate in this meeting. It's like, okay, so underneath this tower, I see a dragon, a granite dragon holding the tower. And it's like, yeah, really.
But you know what they say, like great clients make great architects, actually.
Yeah.
So I guess somehow you have to go meet the client that match your, how can I say, vibe would be the perfect way to say it. Yeah. Like to be able to reach out the level or your real level. Because I feel like, sometimes you can, I believe we have the same way of seeing things, but we all start a project with I remember one of my teachers back in the days were telling me this. When you're starting a project and you have the project when it arrives, you have this first picture. That's the baddest idea ever. But you have to write it down. And the thing is, it evolves. And when you finish your project, if you take the first idea of the project that you had and what you had right now, there will be 1,000 things completely different.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's all about also, since we're working for someone, because like those projects are mostly project of school. So you're going from your own perspective. But here you're encountering clients. We can take, let's say if we have a family, it's a dad, a mom. Everyone has their point of view and they want everything to match with it. And I feel like that can push the project in a level that even you as an architect wouldn't expect. And I think that's really interesting about the job as well. And one question that it leads me to is, have you ever had a client that went through the process with you and said no?
And said completely no. We actually only had one client so far where it didn't work out at all, and it was a bit weird because in the communication they really wanted to work with us.
Yeah.
But nothing we proposed landed well. But they kept on thinking that we should, until at some point I thought this is not going to work because I don't have this with our other clients. We get it in so and so many steps, and then it's there, and then it's awesome, and they want it, I want it, everyone wants it, and then it's fun. And at some point, it's like, I don't know, I felt like it's like with many sort of concepts, or maybe even in communication, it's like a metal. You can bend it three times, and then it breaks at some point. And I think that happened only one time actually, but. We have very different histories with the different projects. Like if you look at the buildings we have built so far, the design process behind them, they have been quite different. Yeah. So some of them, Michelberger Farm, for example, is almost built exactly how we presented it on the first meeting. And it was a bit unusual actually, because normally we have more than one option in the beginning and we work a bit with different sort of variations of things. We had one idea that we really wanted, and they took it and we built it with very small changes. And that's unusual also for us. But then we've had other projects where we had many times of changes, and then we took a long time. Sometimes time saves you also. You just like, we need to start building because, I don't know, autumn is coming. So let's stop the process now so we can get the permission and get it in and so on. So, but the design process in the beginning is, of course, also the fun part, and it can take time, and it's fine. And then we get to try many different things, and it's okay. It's also where we get to be creative. So it's also a part of the process I enjoy a lot.
Yeah. And was there, through all this process, was there a moment where you were questioning yourself, like, before this workout? Did you sit one day and you were like, is this going to work out, really? Were you in that moment where you sat back and you were like, I don't feel like I've made the best idea doing this?
Actually, not so much, to be honest, because I think I was busy enough, I kept myself busy enough not to think too much about that. I distracted myself because I was always onto something. There was always some work happening. There was always something going on. So I think that there was always enough that I didn't have time to think like now, okay, now when this project is over, I don't know what to do, and I have no work for people. That situation hasn't been there actually.
Okay.
But if I compare the way this office has grown with some of my friends and colleagues who sat down in a group and did some competitions, and after a year or two they won a big one, and suddenly they needed a team of 10 people, and that's like sort of a growth like this, like from zero to nothing very fast. This office grew very slow and organically, 1 or 2 new employees per year in an average. So I had, also financially sustainable then, because we didn't really spend money we didn't have. We didn't end up with a project that was too large for us, and we had to, get a mortgage to pay salaries before we could write the first invoice. All these things never was the case here. So that slower, more organic growth, I think gave a little bit more security, actually. I think if I talk a lot with colleagues and friends about exactly these things, other company owners. We try to sort of, learn a bit from each other. We have lots of questions for each other, and it's a very nice exchange. And I can see that that's definitely what this office has done different than others. That I don't know, has given me a certain kind of security. I think sometimes they end up in very nerve-wracking situations that I luckily haven't been in yet, because it's just a bit slower. And then, I don't know, I mean, I think the creative businesses often suffer from having terrible leaders, terrible bosses of companies, because everyone here in the office, we actually studied the same, all of us. And then now, 15 years later, I am the so-called Geschäftsführer. I have to do tax returns. Other people are managing projects, big or small, and so we do different things. Some people know more about IT than I do, so they somehow slowly take over being the IT expert of the company. So there's a lot of hustling and a lot of trying around. But I think the slower growth has also given me time to adapt into a role that I wasn't educated to do. I was educated to work very classically as an architect. I can draw things, I can develop ideas, but I didn't learn to run a company. And then I had to figure that out as we went.
But how is it for you to, the moment where you arrive? Obviously, at the beginning, it was just you, I can imagine. But the moment that you arrive at this point where you are like, I can't do this alone no more. How was it for you? And was it easy for you to rely on others to do your work?
No, that was actually when the dream started coming true, because then it started feeling like an office and not just me trying around. So that was a really good moment when I feel like, okay, now I have the economy, I can hire someone, and I can start, and then we also need a bigger space and so on. And that, it was a bit of a threshold to get over, but it came at the time where there was also work for it, and where there was economic base for doing it. So that all came quite natural and step by step.
Okay. We'll come back to the teaching. I've got this question. I'm just wondering, what, besides building, like you just said, like you're teaching and you're having these lectures that you're giving, let's say, around Europe, because you're not doing it in a country specifically. What belief about success do you think is like, or more like, do you see is hurting your students the most today?
At the time when they are still at the university?
At the university, or when they just get out of the university?
If success tears them apart, you mean? Or
I mean, it's more like the way they imagine success, because we all are, we have these idols that we see, and we all think that, hey, when I get out, I want to be Sigurd Larsen. I want to be Bjarke Ingels. I want to be this. And then you can get, I mean, there's this reality that hits after, but that's just the beginning. But what belief do you think that the students really have, like, right now regarding success that is really...
I mean, if they follow my path of of disappointment, I think the moment you realize how little you can, how little control you have as an architect over the factors that comes of the first disappointment is when you start figuring out how regulated a business we are in, and how like different from country to country, but how little sense it also makes, or how that forces a lot of great ideas into something very mediocre because they have to be squeezed into a box that is formed by law and not by common sense. How sustainability and good intentions are sometimes not even possible because of laws and so on. That can be the first disappointment. And then, of course, you can't always get the project to be exactly what you wanted it to be because there's other people involved in it too. So then you have to, fight for certain things and build up some good arguments and so on, and see if there is a few things that maybe wasn't that important, and then that can go. So I don't know, the flexibility of it. But I think that comes, the older you get, the less emotional you are about things that didn't work out the way you thought they would be. I think I was more devastated when I was younger over things that didn't turn out the way I think they should be. I don't know. I mostly fight for the big idea. I want the concept to be visible, but there's also at some point some level of detail where it doesn't. Where I don't know. There can be a point where A and B are both really, really good. Only C is bad, and within then there's a range. But I mean, to answer your question, I think many of the dialogues I've had with my students to try to equip them was to send them out as early as possible and actually do internships and be in offices and get some early experience, because I think already there you get a reality check. Also of the reality of working as an architect.
Was it something that was reflective regarding your journey?
I mean, I did exactly that myself also, and I think I had a good time doing it. It was also helpful to get the first job, because then I had something on my CV already. I had already some office experience from the beginning on, so to speak, because I had done that in the preparation time. So I don't know. I think maybe it will be a little bit individual how people will experience it. So I can mostly talk of my own sort of experience. But I think also after a while, people also get into, like, if I think about the first 10 years after graduation, that's also for a lot of people where they make a family, make kids and so on. So maybe you come out as an extremely talented and also very ambitious student, but then things happen in your life and then you curb those ambitions a little bit and do other things in life. I mean, a lot of things can happen. So.
For you, was family ever a barrier?
No, not at all. I have no. I mean, I'm lucky that I have a good health, and I have I have a nice family. I didn't have a family that could equip me with finances to start a company, so I had to do these steps and take it slow in the beginning and so on that I explained before. But I don't know. I had maybe something more important, which is moral support. Nobody's an architect in my family, but they're very interested in what I do and want to talk about it. And I mean, my father is a banker. I could imagine if I had done this company in Copenhagen instead of in Berlin, he would have maybe been my accountant, because he knows about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Who knows? So it could have been a family business. And I would have loved that. That would have been sweet. But he doesn't know anything about German paperwork, so he can't do it here. So then I have to figure it out myself. So I think that could have turned out in many different ways.
Okay. Sigurd, I want to end this episode by asking you one last question. If you could remove one thing from how people are taught to build a creative life, what would it be?
If I should take away one component from people in being creative, I mean, I saw actually a lecture some years ago where a lady, she was working in the fashion industry, and she pointed out a problem that in their profession they mostly teach people to be the star of a company and to control your own design process only. And if I try to take that over to the way we teach architecture, it's partly also the case, because we learn a lot about about developing our own ideas and our own argumentation and so on. That's great. But on the other hand, something that I think it has become normal, and it's definitely also something I've done a lot in my teaching, group work, to de-diva students a little bit.
Yeah.
To make sure that they know from the beginning on that every building is a product of group work. It's a product of lots of people.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be your project alone. It's many people's project.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that I took a little bit from that. So if I should disappoint people a little bit, I would probably try to tell them about the importance of understanding it as a process and a collaboration and a group work. And it's fine like that. It's okay. So architects don't live or think the way they are portrayed in movies, where we are usually portrayed as terribly complicated people who are very, very stubborn. And then we say things like probably only Zaha Hadid has said in interviews that I would never say about no compromises and no nothing. I maybe it belongs to another generation, but I don't think that's how architecture is created. It's not the reality. So probably not even for her either. And I think that's maybe something that's nice to clarify with people at an early point, that they should learn to see the charm in that and get something good out of that. Learn to work together with other people.
Do you think that could change effectiveness or the quality of the student? Because like, if I see it in myself and I'm like, obviously I love working with people. I've done it in different type of way, not only into architecture that I was formed in, but sometimes I ask myself, what would have been done? What would it be if I was more into working with people and relying too much into people rather than focusing on developing my own skill first?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it doesn't feel so good if you feel like you grew up with somebody who is not performing, that they're not doing their part of the collaboration. Then it's of course a problem. But no, I think it's I think it's just good to get a good feeling about that, and maybe even learn to become good. I mean, then you have to take the leading role in a group a little bit, and get other people to raise their own ambitions a little bit. I think you can also do that.
Is it easy?
I mean, of course, it's easier when you have the student-teacher relationship than when you have two students.
When you're a student yourself, is it really easy to? I mean,
I think so. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, and otherwise, maybe then the group is too small. If it's only two people and they don't collaborate well, then maybe it works better when it's three people, because then more things can be produced. But in any case, it is a very important. Even if it's a bad experience, it's an important experience to get to try that, because you learn so much about yourself also. And I think that is something that is super essential in working together. Is really seeing everything as a group effort. It's. I mean, I've had to have conversations with students, especially in the first couple of semesters, where I literally have to tell them that they need to be more generous with their ideas, because if they have this sort of picture in their head that they have brilliant ideas and they need to work with them in a little bubble so nobody steals their idea during the process.
That's what we...
that's terrible.
That's how
you have to stop that.
Architecture school goes.
But you need to be more arrogant. You need to think that you and know, and you will also soon get the experience that you have tons of ideas because you're a genius. So you will get a million ideas.
Everyone is hiding his project, don't want to see anything.
If you're sitting there in your little bubble thinking that this is the only good idea you will ever have, and that needs to be nursed and needs to come out so everyone can celebrate it at this moment of release, that's wrong, because it's not the only good idea you're going to have in life. You're going to. This is just one project out of a million.
That's so real.
And you need to be generous with it. You need to show it with everyone. When you don't know how to get on with it, you need to take one of your fellow students and pull them over and ask what they would have done, and you can help each other. You can ask each other.
I mean, that's so real in general, because I realize it whenever sometimes you just want to help people, or you want to know about their experience, and you asked to share portfolios so that you can help each other to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
But
there's a lot of co-learning.
That's so secret for people.
No, but that has to stop. People have to be much, much more self-confident in thinking that they can only learn from sharing it.
Yeah.
And this will not be the final stage of anything. Your portfolio is also constant, Evolution, exactly. And so is your ideas. And that little thing you're working on right now is just 1 out of 600 things you're going to work on before you retire. So open it up and share it. It's fine.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sigurd.
Yeah, you too. It was fun.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.